Bridgehampton, Long Island. Try the 2.85 miles in a Chaparral with Hap Sharp at the wheel. Pre-race favorites are now 1-2. They'll never be able to keep up this pace. Here's the race leader, Hap Sharp. Hap's making his move as they head into the straight. Final lap now. And there's the checker for Hap Sharp and the Jim Hall Chaparral.
Man, it is great to have you front and center. This is Doug for the Full Earth Workshop, episode 3 of building our Cox Chaparral from 1965. Now, this was such an incredibly successful car. In 1965, Jim Hall and Hap Sharp won 16 of the 22 races that they entered. This was a very dominant car, to say the least. Jim Hall changed these Chaparral cars almost every race. The interiors and exteriors changed, and documentation is a little sparse. Detailed photographs were not taken every race. So we're going to estimate what this car looked like at one of the races in Bridgehampton. There were more than one race in 1965 at Bridgehampton. Hap Sharp won the 500-mile race, yet there was one other in the spring that Jim Hall won, and this is the car that we are modeling. The Chaparral 2A was the most popular car for Cox during that year, and it's easy to see why, because it was extremely successful. As I showed you on the iPad, I have a few photographs of this car that I'm modeling, and there are some things that I need to add to the car and to take away. First of all, there were vents that were cut into the rear surfaces. And what I'm doing here is I'm using my cardboard aided design, that's right, CAD, to make sure that the right and left sides will match. And it's a little more tricky than you think, because you've got to make sure that those lines are concentric with each other along with the taillights. So it takes a little bit of work to try to get this thing symmetrical, but after a while I find something that looks pretty decent, and we're going to start cutting into this car in just a moment. Now, on the front panel, there was also an air intake that came right after the extractor vent. The first Chaparral 2s only had the extractor, then they added the single vent that I'm drawing here, and after that they added one right and one left side. Cox modeled their 2A after one of the very early ones, so there are some changes too to the wheel pants. We're going to have to trim those things down. Due to the 100 thousandths thick plastic that was required for molding this, the vents are also too large, so we're going to cut those down just a little bit and then trim up with a little bit of Tamiya paste. All right, here we go. We're cutting into this very valuable slot car. Hey, don't worry, we're going to go boldly forward, and I've got good confidence this is going to turn out fantastic. And I try to use the radius of the bit that I'm using to form the radiuses around the outside. It's just much easier that way. Then you go in with your X-Acto blade and start cutting back. The plastic in this area is actually pretty thin, so it's not very difficult to cut. Then you continue working with a small flat file and sandpaper to get it looking pretty perfect. You probably have a set of small files like I do. This is the one I'm using here. It has a flat side and a radius side. It's perfect for working on vents. If you don't have any of these, you can get them for as little as $5 on eBay, or maybe $10 at a hobby shop near you. One of the tricky things about putting venting on the front of this slot car body, the mounting boss and the vent want to be in the same place. So we cut a deal. We cut away half of the material around the boss, which should be more than enough to hold it. And we're taking this brass mesh. We're going to slide some on top of that boss and then underneath for the rest. To reinforce this area and to make it look a little cooler, we cut off some aluminum tubing just the size of that boss, and we're sliding it over the top. I just love what this fine mesh does to the look of one of these 124 cars. You're able to see through it, and it also takes paint very nicely. You can see I've drawn with pencil where the decals are also going to go. We'll know that everything is spaced correctly when we go to final assembly. Here you can see where we're putting that mesh over the top of that boss and under. You won't really even see that it's there once it's painted up. I always try to cut the mesh very cleanly so when you look under the car, it looks very well engineered. Try never to do it sloppy underneath. It just doesn't make you feel good. It doesn't make you feel like you did your best. Every little detail is so important. I think the driver needs a little bit of attention, especially where the seatbelt is concerned. Now, you can buy little seatbelt kits for 1/24th scale characters, but I really think at this scale, it actually looks better to do it this way and then paint in that detail, because you just can't scale down the fabric as low as you need to for this. Now, if I would have had a pristine Cox slot car body, I don't really think I would have cut into it. However, this one had been painted before, and so it is not really considered exactly as it was. So let's go ahead and cut this up and make it really a lot better than it was. That's my philosophy, at least. As far as the value is concerned, perfectly original slot cars can maintain their value, but also I think highly super detailed slot cars can also be very valuable. On these Chaparral cars from Cox, you'll notice very often that this front section is broken out because it had high-speed impacts into the wall in the past, and there were 4 lights that were located there, making it kind of weak. We are going to rebuild the nose cone area with a little bit of milliput. You can see the detail of the roll cage is a little different than what is shown on the model, so we are going to make it out of metal. The plastic roll cage always broke on these things. I didn't have a solid piece of brass, so what I did was I threaded 2 into each other to make it sort of solid. And the reason for that is if it's hollow and you bend it, it's going to deform. As you see here, I bent it around a screwdriver and it produces a very nice radius and looks identical to what there was before. We're also going to paint this black because in the Bridgehampton race, the roll bar was a flat black color. And as further proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy, the roll bar fits perfectly into place, just snaps there. I love it when a program works out. Well, look, we've done quite a bit of work on this car with more to be done. You can see on the back panel, we've installed vents. We have put vent in the front. We have put a new roll bar into place, and now we're going to fix that pesky front end that was broken off earlier with milliput. And this is a 2-part epoxy that you take in your hands and you just kind of knead it for about 5 minutes. Once it's all a consistent green, you can put it into place. Now remember that it is water soluble. If you try to work on this stuff without any water on your tools or on your fingers, it's just going to stick and you're going to be a very unhappy person. Bring a little glass of water, dip your tool very often. You have to leave it sit for about 3 hours and it gets very hard. We make sure that the contour comes to a point at the top and the bottom, and we're going to leave this sit overnight, and then we'll start sanding on it and work on the other details. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time on the Full Earth Workshop.